Chapter 1360. The path of martial arts was vast and boundless. No one dared to say that they had comprehended all the mysteries of martial arts. This was because martial arts were just empty words. There were only stronger and no strongest. Even true gods, who were omnipotent, had to use martial arts to fight. And the martial arts of true gods were naturally divine-level martial arts. It was a type of martial arts that had already gained spirituality and was no longer limited by form. For example, the three realms killing fist of the supremacy of the three realms had turned into a tangible killing intent. This was still very far from divine-level martial arts as far as the heavens and the earth, but at least it was already on this path. In the strange space with the word martial, Yichen clearly felt the vastness of martial arts for the first time. In a short period of time, the silhouette had already performed thousands of sword arts. Every sword art was a supreme sword art, and all of them had reached perfection. One should know that human strength was limited. It was impossible for one person to create so many sword arts because there was no use for them. These sword arts were all automatically derived from the martial arts essence of demigods. They were not created by demigods. After seeing so many perfect supreme sword arts, if Yichen did not comprehend them, then he would really be stupid. Obviously, Yichen was not stupid. Otherwise, he would not have become the supremacy of 1,000 years. What a domineering sword art! Among the thousands of perfect supreme sword arts performed by the silhouette, there were sword arts with the four profound meanings of earth, water, fire, and wind as the foundation. This sword art was boundlessly domineering. With a swing of the sword, it was as if the world was going to be destroyed. With the profound meaning of yin and yang as the foundation, the sword art was smooth and smooth. It was like a flying immortal from the heavens. It was a stroke of genius, and there was no trajectory to it at all. With the profound meaning of light and darkness as the foundation, the sword art was profound and unpredictable. It wandered between light and darkness, and it could take lives. With the profound meaning of 5 elements as the foundation, the sword art was endless and boundless. With the profound meaning of time and space as the foundation, the sword art was difficult to distinguish between real and fake. Even time and space were mixed up. With the profound meaning of life and death as the foundation, one sword could kill one person. It was extremely dangerous. The thousands of sword arts were like a river. Yichen was swimming in the river, trying his best to absorb all the essence he could to strengthen his foundation. Unknowingly, 3 months had passed. Yichen's 5-element sword art had reached the great completion realm. After the 5-element sword art reached the great completion realm, Yichen created sword moves based on the 5 elements profound. However, this was not enough. Perfection was Yichen's lowest goal. Above supreme martial arts were supreme martial arts, which were martial arts that only legendary supremes could control. The reason why it was called supreme martial arts was that, in addition to the basic profound meaning, a supreme martial art also added the profound meaning of power. Before a supreme martial art reached perfection, although the profound meaning of power could be added, it couldn't be perfectly fused. It was like putting a cup of water and some pebbles in a cup. Although they were together, they couldn't be considered as one. What a supreme martial art needed to do was to fuse the fundamental profound and the profound meaning of power together to display a power that could contend against the heavenly Tao or even surpass it. Of course, to achieve this, one must first cultivate a supreme martial art to perfection. 6 months later, the 5-element sword art finally reached perfection. The perfection of the 5-element sword art contained a great power, completely activating the power of the 5 elements profound. In the past, although Yichen's metal, wood, water, fire, and earth profounds had reached perfection, it was individual perfection and couldn't be considered as a whole. Now, Yichen's 5 elements profound had reached perfection, and the 5 profounds had already fused into one. I wonder if I can fuse the 5 elements profound and the strength profound together to create a supreme martial art. A thought flashed through Yichen's mind as he began to try. After a long time, Yichen shook his head. Just like the time profound after 90% completion, if one wanted to create or cultivate a supreme martial art, their yuan spirit had to be strong enough. Not to mention reaching the silver yuan spirit level, it had to be at least a quasi-silver yuan spirit. Success is due to the black wind stream. Failure is also due to the black wind stream. Understanding the importance of the yuan spirit, Yichen smiled bitterly. Back then, he was greedy for speed and disregarded the consequences. He studied the black smoke in the black wind stream on his own. The black smoke was the aura left behind by the imprisoned demonic sovereigns. The aura was mixed with resentment, curses, and some evil power, which caused Yi Chen's yuan spirit to be impure. Although it was improving rapidly, it stopped after reaching the bronze yuan spirit level. What was more serious was that the evil power was corroding Yi Chen's yuan spirit, trying to replace it. Of course, Yi Chen didn't regret it. If he didn't study the black smoke in the black wind stream, his yuan spirit might have just reached the bronze level, and his strength would at most be at the medium super sovereign level. He wouldn't have had those opportunities. There were many things that couldn't be explained clearly. There was no such thing as regret. Yi Chen just felt a little emotional. Only when my sword intent reaches the 9th level will I be able to destroy the evil power in the yuan spirit. Yi Chen knew that this was the only path he could take, and it was an extremely difficult one. After all, most of the legendary sovereigns' martial wills were at the 8th level. As for ordinary martial wills, they were completely excluded. After becoming a sovereign, their martial will would automatically transform into an elemental martial will. Moreover, most people had already comprehended an elemental martial will before becoming a sovereign. Although ordinary martial wills could improve quickly, they weren't enough to deal with an elemental martial will. In Yi Chen's yuan spirit, the evil power contained countless evil wills. How could ordinary sword intent destroy it? As this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Chen started to capture the will contained in the word martial. This demigod's martial will should be the immortal martial will. As time passed, Yi Chen gradually captured the fluctuations of the martial will. This fluctuation of martial will was extremely obscure, hidden in the depths of the essence of the martial art. If he wanted to completely understand it, he would have to completely comprehend the essence of the word martial. Obviously, Yi Chen couldn't do it. He could only sense the fluctuations and existence of this martial will to see if it could enlighten him. Immortal, vast, everlasting, indestructible. It was hard to imagine how powerful a demigod was. Just a single fluctuation of martial will was enough to make Yi Chen feel a sense of awe and reverence. The paragons of the 3 realms might have become demigods in the end, but the feeling they gave Yi Chen was far inferior to this demigod. As time passed, Yi Chen's immortal sword will continue to improve. Peak of the 8th level. Peak of the 8th level. At the peak of the 8th level, the immortal sword will couldn't improve any further unless Yi Chen could sense the fluctuations of martial will more deeply. If I were a paragon legend, my immortal sword will would have reached the 9th level. Yi Chen sighed. The higher one's cultivation level was, the more things they could obtain from the word martial. Although he had the strength of a paragon legend, he still wasn't a paragon legend. 2 years was too short for a paragon. It felt like a blink of an eye. In the end, Yi Chen still couldn't break through to the 9th level. Next, Yi Chen still had something to do. He had to integrate the 3 divine stones Yin Liexiong gave him into the Heaven Sword. If he succeeded, the Heaven Sword would become a 1-star Heavenly Saint weapon. The difference between a Heavenly Saint weapon and an Earth Saint weapon was not small. It was equivalent to the difference between a Paragon weapon and an Earth Saint weapon. Chapter 1361. A 9-star Earth Saint artifact seems to have reached its limit. In the courtyard, Yi Chen raised the heavenly sword high up. Surging sword chi radiated outwards. Space-time trembled and light circulated. The entire heavenly sword was like the center of a storm, blooming with boundless power. The integration of the first divine stone was rather smooth, but the integration of the second divine stone nearly failed. This made Yi Chen not dare to integrate the third divine stone. After all, a 9-star Earth Saint artifact was already very terrifying. Once the integration failed, even if the heavenly sword didn't explode, its origin would be damaged. The remaining divine stone, Yi Chen prepared to integrate it into the supreme armor. A normal supreme armor could no longer defend against a peak supremacy's attack. Even a grade 5 supreme armor would find it hard to defend against a legendary supremacy. It would be easily pierced and torn apart, unable to reduce the damage. If there was a supreme armor, it could at least reduce the damage. This was also the reason why Yi Chen could almost kill a quasi-legend supremacy in the Divine Fire Cave. It was because the other party's supreme armor was too weak, and Yi Chen's heavenly sword was too sharp. If the other party's supreme armor wasn't broken by the heavenly sword, then it could reduce a portion of the damage that Yi Chen inflicted on him. The armor on Yi Chen's body had already been damaged in the desolate God Tower. The current one was a gift from Ying Liexiong. It was called the Black Eagle Battle Armor, a 4th grade supreme armor. A supreme armor was 10 times more precious than a supreme weapon. Ying Liexiong could gift a 5th grade supreme weapon to Yi Chen. As for a 5th grade supreme armor, even the Unfalling Eagle tribe didn't have many of them. Therefore, it was impossible for him to gift it to Yi Chen. After all, the higher the grade of a supreme weapon, the more divine stones it would take. For Yi Chen, a grade 4 supreme armor was enough. He could integrate at least 3 divine stones, so one was naturally not a problem. Without much effort, Yi Chen integrated the last divine stone into the heavenly sword armor. In an instant, the heavenly sword armor shone brightly, emitting an indestructible aura. Yi Chen estimated that the grade 1 Earth Saint armor was at least 10,000 times harder than the grade 4 supreme armor. A normal legendary supremacy might not be able to pierce through the heavenly sword armor even with a low-star Earth Saint artifact, unless it was a high-star Earth Saint artifact. As long as it wasn't pierced, the heavenly sword armor could help Yi Chen reduce the majority of the damage. Rumble. On this day, the entire Unfalling Eagle tribe suddenly shook. The starry Sky Bear Dog King, who was brought by Yi Chen to the Unfalling Eagle tribe, suddenly stood up. Its fur stood up, and its eyes were filled with ferocity and fear. Berserk beasts were different from martial artists. If a berserk beast wanted to become stronger, it could only devour the flesh and blood of other life forms. The stronger the life form, the greater the benefits it would bring to them. In order to nurture the starry Sky Bear Dog King, Yi Chen would occasionally go out to hunt some berserk beasts that were stronger than the starry Sky Bear Dog King and use their flesh and blood to feed the starry Sky Bear Dog King. Right now, the starry Sky Bear Dog King's strength had already reached the level of a high-class supremacy. Enemy attack? Yi Chen guessed. Roar. The starry Sky Bear Dog King walked over and growled at Yi Chen. You're saying that there's a powerful berserk beast invading the Unfalling Eagle tribe's array? Yi Chen asked in surprise. As the owner of the starry Sky Bear Dog King, Yi Chen could understand the other party's growl. There's actually a berserk beast invading a rank 8 tribe. I wonder what's going on? Yi Chen brought the starry Sky Bear Dog King and flew towards the place where the tremors were the strongest. The entire Unfalling Eagle tribe was in an uproar because of the tremors. Everyone was panicking. However, at this moment, a thunderous voice rang out. It's a berserk beast. Everyone, don't be nervous. It was the leader of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, Ying Liexiong. Crackle. Lightning flashed, and Ying Liexiong instantly arrived outside the Unfalling Eagle tribe. In his line of sight, a huge dark golden berserk beast that looked like a pangolin was attacking the array. Its pair of golden eyes were filled with ferocity and coldness. Damn it, it's a legendary berserk beast, a gold-eating beast. Berserk beasts were also divided into ranks. A legendary berserk beast was naturally a berserk beast that had the strength of a legendary sovereign. For example, the starry Sky Bear Dog King was a super berserk beast, and one day, it could also become a legendary berserk beast. There were many legendary berserk beasts in the Wilderness God continent, but most of them were on the weaker side. Only the 8 legendary berserk beasts were the most troublesome, and among them, the gold-eating beasts could be ranked in the top 3. As the name suggested, gold-eating beasts loved to devour metal. They could bite through any kind of metal, including sovereign-grade metals. As they had devoured countless sovereign-grade metals and absorbed their essence, their bodies were countless times harder than that of a sovereign-grade metal. No one below the demigod realm could hurt them. They couldn't even leave a mark on their bodies. In the entire wilderness god continent, the only things that could threaten the gold-eating beasts were the 5 Sky Saint artifacts. Among them, the Redbud Flower Tribe's Sky Saint artifact, the Redbud Battle Armor, could only be used to protect themselves. Ing Liexiong frowned. This was not the first time he had encountered gold-eating beasts. As the scourge of the wilderness god continent, the leaders of the 5 rank 8 tribes had once united to hunt down gold-eating beasts. What was funny was that the invincible Sky Saint artifact could only slightly injure gold-eating beasts. In order to prevent them from taking revenge, the leaders of the 5 tribes had to work together to cast a seal and seal gold-eating beasts. They didn't expect that gold-eating beasts would break out of the seal today. Are we going to start with the Unfalling Eagle tribe? Ing Liexiong opened his right hand, and a huge hammer appeared in his hand. The hammer had 8 petals, and a yellow light shot up into the sky, mixed with golden lightning. Sky Saint artifact, Sky Hammer. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The gold-eating beast's roar was very sharp, similar to a sound wave attack. Because of this sound, the ground within a radius of dozens of miles cracked inch by inch. The sharp sound even passed through the power of the formation and was transmitted to the inside of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, causing many people to bleed from their orifices and fall unconscious. Don't be presumptuous. Ing Liexiong swung his hammer at gold-eating beasts. Bang! The yellow light exploded, and gold-eating beasts retreated dozens of steps. The Sky Hammer was a Sky Saint artifact, after all. Even something as powerful as gold-eating beasts would be forced back. The furious gold-eating beast stomped on the ground with its hind legs, causing the ground to bulge and explode. In the next moment, gold-eating beast's speed burst to the limit and clawed at Ing Liexiong. The claw light was extremely bright, causing the world outside of the claw light to darken. In the world, there was only this claw light. Open heaven and earth! Ing Liexiong shouted and swung his hammer. The space-time in front of him twisted to the limit, and the wind, water, and fire became chaotic, turning into chaos and spreading out. The greatest sound was devoid of sound. At this moment, all sound disappeared. Only the bubbles of primal chaos were exploding and spreading. Within the protective range of the Unfalling Eagle tribe's array, Yichen sucked in a breath of cold air. Supreme martial skill combined with a heavenly saint artifact was actually this powerful. This was the Huangshan continent. If it were in the outer universe, Unfalling Eagle Liexiong's supreme martial skill might really be able to turn a vast expanse of space into primal chaos. Roar, roar, roar. The starry sky bear dog king kept growling. It wanted to become a legendary beast as powerful as gold-eating beasts and look down on the world of beasts. Chapter 1362. The man and the beast fought for hundreds of rounds. Neither of them could do anything to the other. Ing Liexiong's advantage lay in his powerful attack, and his weapon was the Sky Explosion Hammer, a heavenly saint weapon. The gold-eating beast's advantage lay in its powerful defense and was not afraid of any attacks. After the battle, the grassland within a radius of 1,000 miles was destroyed. Some places sank hundreds of meters deep. Some places were piled up into mountains, and some places were riddled with holes. To be able to cause such a huge commotion on the Huangshan continent, it was definitely inhuman. The fact that the Huangshan continent was so sturdy was enough to prove how terrifying a true god was. To deal with experts below the true god level, a true god might only need to set up one rule. Damn it! Ing Liexiong faced the gold-eating beast alone. He was under a lot of pressure. He could only hope that the leaders of the other 4 tribes would come as soon as possible. Time passed slowly. An hour had passed. Ing Liexiong was sweating profusely and his muscles were sore. On the other hand, the gold-eating beast was getting stronger and stronger. Ing Liexiong, I'm here. In the distance, a voice as loud as a bell wave could be heard. It was a figure that was even more majestic than a bear. He held a gigantic axe in his hand, and with a swing of the axe, an axe light flew out. As it flew, the axe light expanded thousands of times. In the end, it was like an axe that could split the heavens, and it chopped down on the gold-eating beast. The leader of the Battle Pagoda tribe, Tai Tan, was holding the heavenly saint weapon, the heavenly battle axe. Apocalyptic thunder punishment. Almost at the same time that the axe light flew out, a lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket fell from the sky, bombarding the gold-eating beast's body. These lightning bolts weren't just ordinary lightning bolts. They were made up of lightning runes. Each lightning rune contained an enormous amount of lightning power. With billions of lightning runes gathered together, they could tear apart the world and judge all living things. It was the leader of the Yunzhong tribe, Yun Piaomiao. He held the heavenly saint weapon, the thunder punishment spear. Star-shattering. At the same time, a sea of stars spread out and covered the gold-eating beast. Then, the sea of stars spun and exploded. It was as if a large part of the starry sky was being destroyed. How can I not use my star sea spear to deal with the gold-eating beast? The leader of the Star Ocean tribe, Qin Tianding, rushed over with the quintessential saint weapon, the Star Ocean Spear. The 4 legendary supremes and the 4 heavenly saint tools immediately suppressed the gold-eating beast. However, it was obvious that the gold-eating beast was not a fish on the chopping board that could be slaughtered by anyone. The repeated setbacks had stimulated the gold-eating beast's true ferocity. A terrifying tyrannical aura filled the air, and even the space-time was in a state of chaos. Obviously, the gold-eating beast's tyrannical aura had affected and changed space-time. Compared to the gold-eating beast, the beasts that Yi Chen had seen before were simply obedient babies. Too cruel. Yi Chen sighed. When one's savagery reached a certain level, even one's aura could kill someone. Zhang Xian turned his head to look at Heaven Splitter. Due to the fact that he could tame it, the starry sky bear dog king had lost some of its wildness and ferocity. Even if it were to become an existence on par with the gold-devouring beast one day, it probably wouldn't be as savage as the starry sky bear dog king. Crack let out a low growl. It was indeed frightened by the cruelty of the gold-eating beast, and its legs were trembling. It couldn't be blamed for this. In the beast world, the strong preyed on the weak. Inferior beasts would always be suppressed by superior beasts. If the superior beast was extremely cruel, it would suppress the inferior even more. It was already not easy for Crack to stand still. If it were any other super beast, they would have already laid down and buried their heads in the ground. A sharp hissing sound filled the entire plains. The unfalling eagle tribe was so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. The desolate race's greatest natural enemy was the fierce beasts. The terrifying fierce beast in front of them was a nightmare for them. Even the 4 tribe leaders combined could not subdue it. If it were anyone else, they would have been easily torn to shreds. An even sharper sound was heard. It was like a sharp knife that sliced through the plains. The gold-eating beast's figure turned blurry, as layers of dark golden shadows dazzled everyone's eyes. In the next moment, the gold-eating beast charged at Ing Liexiong. Although fierce beasts generally had low intelligence, they could still tell who was strong and who was weak. In the previous battle, Ing Liexiong had been greatly drained. The gold-eating beast's combat power erupted, prepared to deal a heavy blow to him. The gold-eating beast opened its mouth wide, as a brutal aura enveloped Ing Liexiong. Facing this extremely brutal aura, Ing Liexiong's body paused unnaturally. Just as the gold-eating beast was about to swallow Ing Liexiong, a purple beam of light flew over and blocked the gold-eating beast. Through the netherworld's sacred eye, Yi Chen could clearly see that the beam of light was enveloping a graceful figure. It was the Redbud Flower tribe's leader, Kang Siwei. She had spread her arms out, blocking the gold-eating beast at the critical moment. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere, and the gold-eating beast staggered back. As for Kang Siwei, she was like a cannonball, blown away, creating a huge crater on the plains. But soon Kang Siwei flew out. With the protection of the Redbud Flower battle armor, it would be difficult for the gold-eating beast to hurt her. To a certain extent, her defense was stronger than the gold-eating beast's. Of course, her overall combat power was definitely not as strong as the gold-eating beast. Among the 5 heavenly saint weapons, although the Redbud Flower battle armor could not threaten the gold-eating beast, it was the most important. Without Kang Siwei blocking the gold-eating beast, the other 4 would be in danger. After all, they could not suppress the gold-eating beast to the point where it could not move. Join hands and cast the seal. Star Sea Tribe's leader, Qin Tianding, said. Yes. Ing Liexiong nodded seriously. If Kang Siwei had not helped him, he would have definitely been injured. The gold-eating beast was not only strong in combat power, but also in endurance. If they continued to fight, the gold-eating beast would become stronger and crazier, and they would slowly become weaker. Slow down, I think casting the seal is useless. It won't be long before it breaks out of the seal again. Kang Siwei objected. Then what should we do? Titan asked. Why don't we tear the space-time and send it into the Desolate God's secret territory, just like how our ancestors sent the other two legendary beasts into the Desolate God's secret territory? Desolate God's secret territory. The four were stunned. The Desolate God's secret territory was the most mysterious place in the Desolate God continent, and it was also the most dangerous place. Those who entered had never come out. Although they knew where the Desolate God's secret territory was, no one dared to go in. As Kang Siwei had said, sending the gold-eating beast into the Desolate God's secret territory was indeed the best way. No matter how strong the gold-eating beast was, once it entered, it would not be able to come out. However, tearing the space-time was not an easy task. Our Heavenly Saint weapons can be activated to the limit and tear the space-time slightly. I think with the 5 Heavenly Saint weapons combined, we should be able to tear a hole big enough to send the gold-eating beast into the Desolate God's secret territory. Kang Siwei said. Chapter 1363. In that case, let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, we'll seal it again. Ing Liexiong looked at the grassland and frowned. If the gold-eating beast continued to wreak havoc, the unfalling eagle tribe would definitely have to migrate. They had to deal with the gold-eating beast as soon as possible. The plan had been decided, but to carry it out, they still had to put in some effort. The gold-eating beast would definitely not enter the space-time crack obediently. The battle continued, and the grassland was ruined beyond recognition. With the protection of the formation, Yichen did not have to worry about the aftermath. His eyes stared at the 5 tribe leaders without blinking. Sometimes, they would look at Ing Liexiong, Kang Siwei, Titan, Yun Miao Miao, and Qin Tianding. These 5 people not only had Sky Saint weapons, but their strength was also extraordinary. The martial arts they used were all supreme martial arts. Not to mention facing the supreme martial arts, just looking at them made Yichen's heart tremble. Perhaps in terms of profoundness, supreme martial arts might not be much more profound than supreme martial arts, but after integrating the power ultimacy, supreme martial arts had the power to destroy the world that supreme martial arts did not have. Power ultimacy, power, power. What is power? Great power? Not necessarily. The power of everything's operation is too shallow. Watching the battle between the 5 legendary supremes and the gold-eating beast, Yichen seemed to see the shadow of power, vague yet real. Yichen's power ultimacy had already reached more than 90% and was close to completion. It was very difficult to complete the power ultimacy, mainly because Yichen was not a supremes in physique refinement, so he could not directly feel the deepest essence of the power ultimacy. It was very difficult for a supremes in physique refinement to cultivate a supreme martial art to completion. Power should be a kind of violence. The so-called violence is not violence in a narrow sense, but violence in a broad sense. Overwhelming 10 people is just one kind of violence. Unknowingly, Yichen's power ultimacy had grown to the completion realm, and was only one step away from completion. After raising the power ultimacy to completion realm, Yichen's aura changed subtly. Every action and gaze gave people a sense of oppression. Heaven Splitter was very sensitive. He instantly sensed Yichen's strange behavior. He ran over and rubbed his head against Yichen's shoulder. Berserk beasts were born with the innate ability to use the Profound of Power. The Profound of Power had already been integrated into their bloodline. In terms of exerting the Profound of Power, Yichen wasn't even a match for Heaven Splitter. This was because Heaven Splitter could already use the Profound of Power to perfection. Of course, Heaven Splitter himself didn't know any great principles. Using the Profound of Power to perfection was just an instinct. Therefore, when Yichen's Profound of Power improved, Heaven Splitter regarded Yichen as his master even more. Is this the essence of power? Yichen could feel the profound power contained in Skysplitter's bloodline. In the past, he couldn't see it. No wonder this savage beast gave off such a strong pressure. The battle between the leaders of the 5 tribes and the gold-eating beast had reached its climax. It had to be said that Kang Siwei was very useful. With her holding off the gold-eating beast, the other 4 could safely suppress it. Do it! An illusory redbud armor appeared outside of Kang Siwei's body. It not only gave her an indestructible defense, but it also increased her power to the same level as the gold-eating beast. With the help of her heart power explosion, Kang Siwei locked the tail of the gold-eating beast, making it unable to move. Open heaven and earth. Cut the sky and crack the earth. Crush the stars. Destroy the world thunder punishment. The leaders of the 4 tribes increased their desolation origin to the limit and threw it at a point in front of the gold-eating beast. The 4 supreme martial arts were extremely horrifying individually. When they were gathered at one point, their power reached the critical point of the Huangshan continent. The space-time suddenly shattered, and a thick space-time crack appeared. The inside of the space-time crack was chaotic, with colorful lights surging. It might have been a moment or a year, but the space-time crack became clear. A strange environment appeared in the space-time crack. The aura in the strange environment was primitive and wild, and it was 100 times stronger than the wild aura in the Huangshan continent. The leaders of the 4 tribes all knew the location of the Huangshan secret territory, so they didn't choose the location of the space-time crack blindly. The moment the space-time crack appeared, a horrifying suction was produced. Under this suction, large pieces of grassland were sucked in. Each piece was 100 miles wide, covering the sky. The gold-eating beast struggled with all its might. There was a trace of fear in its eyes. This fear didn't come from the space-time crack, but from the strange environment on the other side of the space-time crack. There was something there that terrified it. The space-time has been torn apart. Yichen was also terrified. The space-time of the Wilds continent had been strengthened to an unimaginable level by the origami. It could be imagined how powerful the Heavenly Saint artifacts and supreme martial arts were to be able to tear apart the space-time. However, the role of the legendary supremes couldn't be ignored. If it was Yi Chen who used the Heavenly Saint artifacts and supreme martial arts, the power would definitely be many times weaker than any one of them. Among the 5 people present, every one of their martial primordial spirits was at the silver level, and they weren't at the silver primary level. They were at least at the silver intermediate level or advanced level. Finally, the gold-eating beast was sucked in, along with a large piece of grassland. Kang Siwei and the others relied on the Heavenly Saint artifacts to resist the suction, but they were still locked in place and couldn't move. Once they moved, their center of gravity would deviate, and they would definitely be sucked in. At that time, it would be too late to cry. Through the space-time crack, the 5 people saw the scene on the other side. Suddenly, the environment on the other side changed into another place. There was a 2-headed fierce beast with dark gray skin. It had a dragon head and a snake head. This 2-headed fierce beast posed a far greater threat to the 5 people than the gold-eating beast. Could it be the legendary fierce beast, the Gemini Tyrannosaurus? Look, another fierce beast has appeared. It looks like the legendary fierce beast, Tifula. The environment changed again, and the 5 people saw another fierce beast. It looked like a baboon, and its eyes were blood red. It squatted there, and its eyes were cold, as if it could see through space-time. The gold-eating beast was one of the top 3 legendary fierce beasts in the Wilderness God continent. However, in the legends of the Wilderness God continent, there were many more terrifying legendary fierce beasts than the gold-eating beast. However, they had never appeared, so the wilderness race gradually forgot about them. If there was a ranking of the legendary fierce beasts that had appeared in history, the gold-eating beast might not even be in the top 20. In the space-time crack, the gold-eating beast's body trembled. In the world of fierce beasts, the weak were prey to the strong. It was even crueler than the civilizations of different races. Be it the Gemini Tyrannosaurus or Tifula, they only brought it fear, just like how Sky Splitter was afraid of it. It could feel that the environment inside was completely different from the outside. The The fierce beasts that could survive inside were definitely 100 times more brutal than it was. The brutal ones were afraid of encountering even more brutal ones. Chapter 1364. Finally, the gold-eating beast was sucked to the other side, and the space-time crack was repairing itself. The gap was getting smaller and smaller, and finally, there was only a thin crack left, and it was about to close. Boom! The space-time suddenly shook violently, and the leaders of the 5 tribes took a few steps back. Kong Siwei was the closest to the shaking point, so she sat down on her butt. Her full chest was heaving up and down, and her face was full of shock. What is that? Kong Siwei opened her rosy mouth. The space-time crack that was about to close was suddenly opened up by a giant claw. The claw was dark blue, and it was covered in scales. A brutal aura came through the claw, and it made everyone feel like they had returned to the ancient times, where ferocious beasts roamed freely. They felt like they were floating, and there was no sense of security at all. Attack it! Don't let it come over! Kong Siwei screamed. She remembered a legend of the ferocious beast world. In the desolate god's secret territory, there was a demigod ferocious beast. Just from the size of the claw, the beast that opened the space-time crack was at least the size of a small mountain. It should be known that in the desolate god continent, the rules were very strict. The bigger a ferocious beast could maintain, the stronger it was. For example, the super ferocious beast, Sky Splitter, was only the height of a human, while the gold-eating beast was dozens of meters long. Other than that, it was impossible for a legendary ferocious beast to open a space-time crack with just one claw. Only a demigod ferocious beast could do that. Yes, attack it. The leaders of the other 4 tribes came to their senses. The desolate god's secret territory was very special. Tearing through space-time to enter was relatively easy, but tearing through space-time to come out was as difficult as reaching the sky. This demigod ferocious beast could not come out by itself, so when it saw the space-time crack, it took the chance to attack, trying to escape from the desolate god's secret territory. This concerned the safety of the entire continent as well as their own, so the 5 of them attacked the dark blue claw, trying to force it back. Vaguely, the 5 of them, including Yi Chen and Sky Splitter, heard a terrifying roar. When Sky Splitter heard this roar, he immediately lay down. The difference between him and a demigod ferocious beast was too big. Just one roar was not something he could withstand. Luckily, the other party did not come with its real body, or else it would be even worse. Compared to the universe, this place is more like a mythical era. Yi Chen had already been shocked many times today, and the appearance of the dark blue claw had made him shiver even more. However, the universe doesn't seem to be that simple. Hell, the Milky Way, and other unknown places. In addition to the Black Wind Stream where countless demons are imprisoned, there might even be demigod-level demons alive. It seems that the universe seems to be bound by an even stronger game rule. As he grew stronger, Yi Chen's view of things changed. In the past, he thought that Sky Demon Sovereign and True Martial Sovereign were the strongest in the universe. They were at least at the top level. Now, it seemed that he had been looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. The real experts had probably retreated behind the scenes. Perhaps because of the rules of the game, they couldn't force their way out. Or perhaps, they were like the dark blue giant claw beast, trapped in some place and unable to escape. With the lifespan of a demigod, how could they not know where they were? The 9-turn star was so safe because of the power of a demigod. Only by becoming stronger will I be able to obtain more information. Yi Chen would never stop growing stronger, and now there was another factor. Don't be disheartened. Let's grow together. Sky Splitter was huge. It could reach Yi Chen's waist even if it lay there. Yi Chen reached out and touched Sky Splitter's head. It was furry and very comfortable. Boom, boom, boom. The space-time trembled more and more violently. Although the dark blue giant claw could ignore the combined attacks of the 5 tribe leaders, it still had to bear the power of the space-time fissure. It could not fight back and could only passively take the hits. With every hit, the space-time fissure would close a little. Once the space-time fissure was completely closed, the dark blue giant claw would definitely be cut off. Even demigods could not resist the rules set by the desolate god. Otherwise, there would not be so many legendary beasts trapped in the desolate god's secret realm. Seeing that the space-time fissure was about to close, the dark blue giant claw was squeezed out of shape. However, right at this moment, a terrifying power surged out from the dark blue giant claw. This power was not just any beast's power, but a higher-level power. How could the 5 tribe leaders not know that this was divine power? Divine power was different from pure energy. Divine power was a fusion of one's own cultivation, domain, will, and even heart power. In short, except for martial arts, basically everything had been fused into it. This was a power that surpassed nature and could not be restrained at all. Not all demigods could cultivate divine power. Normally, only powerful demigods could do so, and new demigods had not even crossed the threshold. Of course, there was definitely a difference between the divine power of a demigod-level beast and the divine power of a true god. From the fact that this demigod-level beast was trapped in the desolate god's secret realm, it could be seen how huge the gap between a demigod and a true god was. A single rule could completely restrict you, and you could not resist it. Gotcha! The space-time fissure that was about to close suddenly collapsed. The dark blue giant claw stretched out, revealing an abnormally strong dark blue arm. Suddenly, a black lightning flashed, and the demigod-level beast's arm turned into dust. The space-time fissure instantly closed up. Luckily, the rules of the desolate god continent are very sensitive to divine power, or else we would have been killed in an instant. Kong Siwei still had lingering fears. The other 4 tribe leaders nodded. There had been too many demigods in the history of the desolate god continent, but very soon, these demigods would disappear from everyone's sight. Therefore, many people of the desolate race believed that other than entering the desolate god tower, as long as they could become demigods, they could leave the desolate god continent. This was also the goal that they had been working hard for. After solving the problem of the gold-eating beast, the 5 of them were a lot more relaxed. As for the demigod-level beast, they did not care about it at all. No matter how strong the demigod-level beast was, it could only stay in the desolate god mystic realm. It had nothing to do with them. Ing Liexiong, that outsider young man in your tribe, should have understood the word martial, right? How is his strength? Yun Piaomiao looked at Yi Qin, who was protected by the array, and asked curiously. Ing Liexiong did not hide it. His sword skills have reached perfection. Perfection? That's really fast. No wonder he was the best in this year's tower. Yun Piaomiao was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, "But tell him to be careful. The martial Dao primordial spirit of the youngsters in my tribe is already in a state of advancement. Once it reaches the silver martial Dao primordial spirit, he will become a legendary sovereign in name only." What is his identity? In truth, Ing Liexiong was very curious. I can't say. Yun Piaomiao shook her head. So mysterious, Ing Liexiong muttered. Ing Liexiong muttered. The relationship between the leaders of the 5 great tribes was very subtle. They were both opponents and friends, depending on the situation. Yun Piaomiao, look at how proud you are. My tribe's evil star became a legendary supremacy a week ago. Chen Tianding threw a bomb. What? So fast? Ing Liexiong and the rest looked at Chen Tianding. Chen Tianding smiled. Actually, he could have condensed the Silver Yuan soul a long time ago. It's just that he has cultivated a martial Yuan soul secret technique. This secret technique requires sufficient accumulation to allow him to break through. Otherwise, there will be repercussions. Kong Siwei and Tai Tan looked at each other. Among the 5 tribes, only their 2 tribes did not have outsider geniuses. These outsider geniuses were too terrifying. Although Kong Xueli and Zhan Ta were also absolute geniuses, they were obviously weaker than the 3 of them. 10 years later, Evil Star will visit Yunzhong tribe. Tell the mysterious kid in your tribe to prepare. Chen Tianding continued. 10 years. It seems like Evil Star is quite confident. Yun Piaomiao smiled. If Evil Star went to challenge the bloodline of the great demon king now, the bloodline would definitely not be his match. The mention of 10 years later was definitely to give the bloodline a chance. The space outside the black windstream was pitch black and deep as usual. Black air currents surged out from the cracks in the space, polluting the heavenly Tao law and causing the space to creak. A very clear sound rang out. If anyone was here, they would definitely be dumbfounded. The space-time at the entrance of the black windstream was like a piece of adhesive tape, being torn apart layer by an invisible force. After dozens of layers were torn apart, a giant transparent lock appeared. The giant lock had yin-yang patterns, 5 elements patterns, and space-time patterns. It was obvious that this was a sealing lock. Gotcha. The seal lock opened automatically. At the same time, the seals of the countless caves inside the black windstream opened one after another. It seemed like the giant lock outside was the core of the seal of the entire black windstream. The seal is gone? A faint voice came from one of the caves. Then, a figure covered in black smoke came out. The seal is gone. Ha, I'm finally free. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 plumes of black smoke shot out from the caves in the canyon walls. The auras that leaked out from the black smoke were all paragons. Of course, most of the caves were completely silent. Clearly, the wretch devils in those caves had long since fallen. Only these wretch devils could survive. In the caves deep in the canyon, a few voices were talking. It's been so long. To think that we've been imprisoned for more than 1,000,000 years. I wonder what the situation outside is like. After we get out, I'll definitely destroy a few planets of the human race with life. I haven't been locked up for so many years for nothing. I advise you not to be rash. We'll talk after we get out. Who cares? I don't believe that there's anything out there that can fight against us. As the few of them were talking, there was a sudden fluctuation in the depths of the cave. Then, endless black smoke surged out, eventually turning into a faint golden human figure. A terrifying pressure radiated out. Congratulations on your release, Lord. The few voices hurriedly said. Chapter 1365. I, Demon St. Gallo, have finally seen the light of day again. The faint golden figure gradually became clearer. It was an evil demon with 2 heads and 4 arms. Because his physical body had been destroyed by the seal, he was now in the state of martial path Yuan Shen, and his martial path Yuan Shen was a gold martial path Yuan Shen. One had to know that once the martial path Yuan Shen reached the gold level, he would be a real demigod. In fact, the evil demons that survived in the black windstream were all in the state of martial path Yuan Shen. Their physical bodies had been sealed for countless years and had long been destroyed. 1 demigod evil demon and 5 legendary paragon evil demons walked out of the cave. Welcome back, Lord. In the valley, hundreds of paragon evil demons greeted respectfully. Some of them came from the demons, some from the evil spirit race, some from the Yaksha race, and some from the Green Man race. But no matter which race they came from, they had to greet the demigod respectfully when they met him. If the legendary paragon was the pinnacle of the paragons, then the demigod had long surpassed the paragon level and was a higher life form. Let's conquer the human alliance together. Demon St. Gallo said coldly. After being imprisoned by the human demigod for countless years, Demon St. Gallo had been holding back his anger. Every time he woke up from his deep sleep, he swore that he would conquer the human alliance and turn everyone in the human alliance into his slaves so that they would never be able to rise again. Although the Mora death prison of the demons had also been opened, and there would definitely be a human demigod in there, he was confident in his own strength. One had to know that he had hidden his strength back then. The paragon evil demons roared in unison. After being imprisoned for countless years, it was time to vent, or they would go crazy. Demon Domain, Mora Death Prison. The seal opened automatically, and the paragon evil demons flew out. The last one was a demigod, a human demigod. His body was shining with a faint golden light. Every once in a while, the universe will be thrown into chaos. But who would know that this is just a game to nurture experts? The human demigod had a scholarly temperament. When he opened and closed his eyes, the sun and moon were dim, deep, and unfathomable. On this day, the universe was in complete chaos. Under the leadership of 2 demigods, the Human Race Alliance and the Demons Alliance engaged in an astonishing battle. In this battle, a total of 36 Supremes perished. Most of them were Supremes who had just escaped from the Black Windstream and the Mora Death Prison. They had been sealed for too long, and like Empyrean Rotting Demon, their strength was far from their peak. The most shocking thing was the battle between the two demigods. Although demigods were suppressed by the will of the universe, they were still not something a legendary supremacy could compare to. The battle between Demon Saint Galois and the human demigod had caused a huge black hole to appear in the universe. It should be known that although a super supremacy could also create a black hole, it was only a small one. The black hole created by two demigods was enough to devour everything and destroy the laws of heaven. Nothing could exist within a radius of 1 light year. The battle ended as quickly as it came. Both sides laid down their banners and laid down their drums, quietly waiting for the next decisive battle. The Wilderness God Continent. 10 years passed in a flash. In the mountains 10,000 miles away from Yunzhong Luo, Evil Star and the black-robed young man each stood on a mountain. Who exactly are you? Supreme Evil Star's aura was thousands of times stronger than 10 years ago. His surging essence, chi, and spirit were comparable to the sun in the sky. It was dazzling and pure, emitting a faint silver light. This was a sign that his martial yuan soul had advanced to the silver level. Since you want to know so much, there's no harm in telling you. The black-robed young man pulled down the hat that was covering his face. His long black hair fluttered in the wind like ink. His pupils were pitch black to the extreme, like two black holes. At the same time, a terrifying demonic aura erupted, causing the world to darken. Demonic power. It's demons. Evil Star narrowed his eyes and carefully sized up the other party. Suddenly, his pupils dilated. Great Demon King bloodline. That's right. The black-robed young man grinned. Submit to me, Evil Star. You should know what my appearance means. The black-robed young man looked straight at Evil Star. A complicated expression flashed across Evil Star's face. Then he laughed. It's easy to make me submit. Defeat me. Otherwise, so what if you have the Great Demon King bloodline? Don't worry. It's not difficult to defeat you. The black-robed young man was indifferent. Evil Star snorted. Just like the legends, the Great Demon King bloodline is really arrogant. However, your martial Dao Yuan Shen has just advanced to the silver level, while I have 10 years of accumulation. If this is where your confidence lies, then let's begin. The black-robed young man stood with his hands behind his back. The aura on his body was as deep as the sea. With him as the center, the sky and earth darkened and became deeper and deeper. It was so deep that Evil Star could not see the black-robed young man's position clearly. It was as if he was in the sky, but it was also as if he was right in front of him. Evil Star's heart trembled, and his battle intent exploded. Take my demonic divine fist. His entire person turned into a ray of gray flowing light. Evil Star punched toward the deepest part of the sky and earth. The terrifying fist force covered the sky and earth, and it was unscrupulous. With one hand behind his back, the black-robed young man extended his right hand and clenched his fist. Boom! He punched out, and a dazzling light shone. Space-time trembled, and Evil Star flew backward. What a light dark fist! Evil Star's figure flashed, and he pounced toward the black-robed young man again. The pervasive fist force filled the sky and earth, and it was as if there were countless Evil Stars attacking. In contrast, the black-robed young man's expression was relaxed. His surroundings were pitch black, but his fist force was incomparably dazzling. This was the uniqueness of the light and darkness ultimacy. After 1,000 moves, the black-robed young man suddenly met Evil Star. The darkness of the sky and earth gradually merged into his body, and his right fist became brighter and brighter, even brighter than the sun in the sky. It was extremely blinding. Pung! The fist struck out, and a dazzling light flashed past. Evil Star spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. This fist was too fast, so fast that Evil Star had no time to react. Is this the bloodline of the Great Demon King? Evil Star was at a loss for a moment. He felt that he was already strong enough, and no matter what aspect, He was not inferior to the shocking geniuses of ancient times. However, facing the bloodline of the great Demon King, he was still defeated in a mess, and this was under the condition that the other party was not serious. It should be known that more than 10 years ago, judging from the results of the Tower Challenge, the other party was only slightly stronger than him. More than 10 years had passed, and the other party had actually widened the gap. What was even more terrifying was that the other party's martial path Yuan Shin was actually stronger than his. Hadn't he just broken through? Do you still want to fight? The black-robed young man asked calmly. Forget it, I'm not your match. I'm willing to submit to you. However, if there comes a day when your improvement slows down, don't blame me for leaving you. Evil Star took a deep breath and said with a complicated expression. The black-robed young man smiled and said, Sure. As long as you have the ability, you can take everything back from me at any time. Chapter 1366. After comprehending the word martial, Yichen summarized the 5 elements sword art and the space-time sword art. The 5 elemental sword art still had 3 styles. The first style was the hegemon sword style, the second was the illusory sword style, and the third was the defensive sword style. The space-time sword art had 2 styles. The first style was the chaos style, which incorporated the essence of the death cleave. When the sword was unleashed, space-time would become chaotic. The second style was the burial sword style. Just like the chaos style, the burial sword style incorporated the essence of the burial sword art. However, the changes were greater. It was quite different from the original burial sword art. Among the 5 great sword techniques, the defensive sword technique was the most profound. It was a technique that could be used to attack while defending, and it was good at dealing with opponents who were stronger than the user. The burial sword technique was the most frightening. Not only could this technique destroy the opponent's time, but its killing power was also increased by a lot. Although the original burial sword technique could freeze the opponent, it was much weaker in terms of power. It was only by combining the essence of the word break that it had some killing power. Although the power ultimacy has not been perfected, I should be able to do it by incorporating it into the simplest and most direct hegemon sword art. Among the 5 sword moves, the hegemon sword art was undoubtedly the most compatible with the power ultimacy. The others were a little more complicated. 5 elements ultimacy. Power ultimacy. Yi Chen's method was simple. He would change one ultimacy after every move. The first move was the 5 elements ultimacy, the second was the power ultimacy, the third was the power ultimacy, and the fourth was the power ultimacy. The cycle continued. The move that contained the 5 elements ultimacy was more mysterious and extraordinary. The move that contained the power ultimacy didn't focus on technique. It had a sense of freedom and bravery. The difference in philosophy also made it very difficult to fuse 2 ultimacies. One had to find the same point and then fuse them. Yichen, I have bad news for you. The 2 from the Cloud Tribe and the Star Sea Tribe have become legendary supremes. Lan Yu brought a piece of news that day. Oh, so fast? Putting away the star sword, Yichen raised his eyebrows. I can't believe it either. Do you want me to ask your father to teach you some ways to break through the martial Dao Yuan spirit? Lan Yu's intuition told her that the entanglement between the 3 of them was very big. She didn't want to see Yichen fall behind. This problem can only be solved by myself. Yichen shook his head. All right, if there's anything you need help with, just let me know. Thanks a lot. After Lan Yu left, Yichen smiled bitterly. Yichen was not surprised that Evil Star had broken through to the legendary supreme stage. Evil Star's age was more than double his, and he had accumulated enough. However, the breakthrough of the great Demon King's bloodline had indeed exceeded Yichen's expectations. It seemed like the legends were true. The great Demon King's bloodline had unlimited potential. In terms of accumulation, it would not take a long time to achieve it. In terms of talent and potential, the great Demon King bloodline is indeed invincible, but in terms of comprehension ability, I'll have to fight to know. Yichen felt a surge of pride in his heart. It was only interesting to defeat such an opponent. Yunzhong landed in a luxurious courtyard. The black-robed young man and Evil Star sat in the pavilion, drinking tea and eating meat. Great Demon King Bloodline, I still don't know your name. Evil Star put down the meat in his hand and asked. The black-robed young man said slowly, the Great Demon King Bloodline is determined by the heavens. There's no need for a name. You can call me the First Demon Lord. The First Demon Lord. Evil Star raised his eyebrows. The highest authority of the demons was the Sky Demon Lord, and the Great Demon King Bloodline was called the First Demon Lord. It was obvious that he wanted to replace the Sky Demon Lord. Of course, this was understandable. When the Great Demon King Bloodline appeared, everyone had to give way, including the Sky Demon Lord. Who's that person from the Unfalling Eagle tribe? I feel like you should know him. Evil Star asked again. He's a rare genius of the human race. His name is Yi-Chin. In terms of talent, you can't compare to him. He's no more than 800 years old. In the previous war between the Demons Alliance and the Human Race Alliance, because of him, the Demons Alliance lost. Oh, it seems like you came to the Wilderness God continent because of him. Evil Star looked at the First Demon Lord meaningfully. He can barely be called a strong opponent of mine. Avoiding him is the best choice. You can't be thinking that the Great Demon King Bloodline is the strongest right from the start, right? The First Demon Lord didn't care about his guess. He didn't need the process, but the result. No matter what, there aren't many people who can make the Great Demon King's bloodline avoid him. Fine, I'll help you test him. Let's see how much progress he has made after comprehending the word, martial. Evil Star stood up. The First Demon Lord raised his teacup and took a sip. Then I'll have to trouble you. He also wanted to know how much progress Yi-Chin had made. When it came to one's strong opponent, one naturally had to know oneself as well as the enemy. It was indeed much easier to fuse the power ultimacy with the hegemon sword style. If the previous hegemon sword style was a perfect supreme sword move, the current hegemon sword style barely had the power of a supreme sword move. It could be considered a quasi-supreme sword move. Supreme martial arts are the perfect fusion of technique and power. It's not enough to have technique without power, and it's not enough to have power without technique either. The current hegemon sword style is the true hegemon sword style. On the grassland, a sword mark that was dozens of meters deep spread out. At the beginning of the sword mark, Yi-Chin stood there. As the days passed, Yi-Chin started to fuse the second style. This style was the first style of the space-time sword technique, chaos style. As for the fusion of illusory sword style, defensive sword style, and burial sword style, the difficulty was too high. Yi-Chin planned to go from low to high, step by step. Defensive sword style was the last. In terms of profoundness, this style was the first, and the difficulty of fusing it was even higher than the most terrifying burial sword style. Halfway through the fusion of the chaos style, an uninvited guest came. Evil Star wanted to challenge him. Yi-Chin, there's no need to be in such a hurry to accept the challenge. He's a legendary supremacy. It's unfair to you. You said. Yi-Chin smiled and said, it's fine. I also want to know what level I've reached. Even if the other party is a legendary supremacy, he might not be able to defeat me. From the results of the previous tower challenge, in terms of martial arts progress, he was one of the best. Only the Great Demon King bloodline could compare to him. Moreover, he had comprehended the word martial first, so there was no reason for him to not accept the challenge. The battle between Yi-Chin and Evil Star caused a commotion in the Unfalling Eagle tribe. Everyone wanted to see who was stronger after a dozen years. Leader, things aren't looking good this time. In the Unfalling Eagle tribe, an elder sized up Evil Star and shook his head slightly. The other party had already become a legendary supremacy. His foundation was many times stronger than Yi-Chen's. Lai Xiong said, how would we know if we haven't fought? I think since he dares to accept the challenge, he must have some confidence. I'm afraid it's too mysterious. The elders of the Unfalling Eagle tribe didn't think highly of Yi-Chin. They were both geniuses, but there was a huge gap in their realms. It could be said that the difference was like the distance between heaven and earth. Seeing that Yi-Chen's martial Dao Yuan Shin hadn't broken through, Evil Star was a little disappointed. Fortunately, He already knew that Yi Chen's sword art had reached the perfection level. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be interested. Yi Chen, don't blame me for not giving you time. I just want to let you know how terrifying the Great Demon King bloodline is, Evil Star said as he slowly let out a breath. In the same amount of time, the Great Demon King bloodline improved faster than everyone else. Sometimes, unfairness was also a kind of fairness. Chapter 1367. It doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. To me, it doesn't matter. This world was unfair to begin with. Forcing it was just a display of cowardice. True experts never cared about fairness. They only cared about the results. But it seems like you're very open-minded. Evil Star was a little surprised. He was a legendary paragon, but the other party still dared to say that. It seemed like he had a lot of confidence. The two of them were fighting 3,000 kilometers away from the Unfalling Eagle tribe. That place was full of potholes, and there was not a single piece of good land in a radius of 1,000 kilometers. It was the place where the 5 tribe leaders had fought the gold-eating beasts. Because this was the wilderness god continent, it was not so easy to fill up the potholes. Thus, Eagle Yexiong had moved the tribe 3,000 kilometers away. High up in the sky, Evil Star and Yi Chen stood in the air, several kilometers away from each other. A few hundred kilometers away from them, a large number of spectators surrounded them. Evil Star's body shone with a brilliant silver light. This was the light emitted by his martial Dao Yuan Xin. The silver light fused with the evil power, turning into a gray light full of evil qi. Whoosh, the gray light flashed, and Evil Star instantly appeared in the sky above Yi Chen. His fist flashed down. The first form of the extreme evil divine fist, Evil Fist 10 flashes. The Evil Fist 10 flashes trajectory was erratic, and it was unscrupulous. It was already very impressive for an ordinary legendary paragon to be able to block 6 or 7 flashes. Dang, 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 10 consecutive crisp sounds rang out. Evil Star's Evil Fist 10 flashes was blocked by Yi Chen. He had used the most exquisite defensive sword form. Evil Star, if you think you can defeat me without going all out, then you're gravely mistaken. The perfect defensive sword form did not have any blind spots or weak spots. No matter how strong the enemy's attack was, unless it exceeded the limits of the defensive sword form, it would be impossible to break through the defense. Don't be too confident. Take another heavenly Evil Fist. Time and space twisted slightly, and Evil Star's figure disappeared. Only the distorted fist force descended from the sky, as if it was a fist from beyond the heavens. Straight chop, vertical chop, diagonal chop, flick chop. Yi Chen's defensive sword art was both offensive and defensive at the same time, allowing him to defend from any angle as he sliced apart wave after wave of fist power. In the end, these fist power all combined into a mess and broke down on its own. It turned out that Yi Chen had used the power to push some of the fist power away and hit the other fist power like dominoes, creating a chain reaction. What the profound defensive sword technique! The elders of the Unfalling Eagle tribe praised him in their hearts. They were all supreme martial arts of perfection, but there were still differences in their strengths. The key lay in the individual's creativity. Obviously, Yi Chen's defensive sword style had reached a very high realm. Up in the sky, Evil Star frowned. He had somewhat underestimated the power of a consummate supreme sword technique, and even more so, he had underestimated Yi Chen's defensive sword technique. Even though he had already become a legendary sovereign, his martial arts were still at the realm of consummate supreme fist technique. Moreover, he had made a breakthrough in the past 10 years. More than 10 years ago, he only had one fist technique that was a consummate supreme fist technique. Seems like I have to be serious. This time, Evil Star came not only to completely defeat Yi Chen. Of course, that was the most important thing. Secondly, he wanted to find out what was so special about this peerless genius Yi Chen. Why did the first demon lord say that he was not as good as him? If any genius heard this, they would be somewhat unconvinced. Boom. The void trembled slightly. Evil Star was like a gray sun, exploding with the power of a legendary sovereign. It was still Evil Fist 10 flashes, But this time, it was more than 10 times faster than before. It was like a flash. Only the first demon lord's fist speed was faster than his. In addition to speed, the destructive power of Evil Fist 10 flashes had also increased by more than 10 times. The fist energy of the first flash was dissipated by Yi Chen, and it shot into the potholed ground. Instantly, the ground shook, and dust filled the air. A pitch-black hole appeared. Second flash. Third flash. Ninth flash. There was actually no gap between each flash. It was just that the flow of time was slightly different. The extreme Evil Fist contained the profound of space and time. When it came to the ninth flash, Yi Chen felt the strain that he hadn't felt for a long time. This flash used the acceleration of time and the vibration of space to create a space-time vibration wave. The space-time vibration wave wrapped around the fist energy, making it difficult for Yi Chen to use it to counterattack. In the end, he could only rely on his understanding of the profound of space and time to disintegrate the space-time vibration wave and forcefully split the fist energy. 10th flash. This flash was extremely fast, and Yi Chen's defensive sword style had already cancelled out the opponent's 9th flash. It would be difficult for him to make a comeback in a short time. Moreover, the defensive sword style might not be able to block the 10th flash. That's your limit. Evil Star coldly stared at Yi Chen. Chaos. Facing the so-called desperate situation, Yi Chen's expression didn't change. All of a sudden, a sword aura that could confuse one's soul and make one's senses scatter burst out. Yi Chen's figure seemed to have turned into thousands of pieces, dodging the Evil Fist's 10 flashes and 10 flashes. When the 10th flash disappeared, Yi Chen's figure pieced together again, forming a whole body. How is this possible? Evil Star's pupils dilated as if he had seen something unbelievable. The profound of space and time is indeed the most difficult and obscure, and also the most bizarre complementary profound. Ing Liexiong revealed a smile. The profound of space was fine, but the profound of time depended on one's talent. Those who didn't have enough talent, even if they were given all the resources, they wouldn't be able to comprehend the profound of time to a high level. It's my turn to attack. Using the defensive sword form, Yi Chen more or less knew the limits of Evil Star's power. Overall, he, who had a perfect supreme sword art, was slightly weaker than his opponent, who had advanced to the legendary supreme level. Of course, this was under the premise that Hegemon sword form and chaos form were not perfect supreme sword arts. Raising the heavenly sword, Yi Chen suddenly waved it. A strange scene happened. Yi Chen's arm, together with the heavenly sword, seemed to have been cut into countless pieces by space and time. Countless sword lights shot out at Evil Star, splitting again along the way and intertwining with each other. It was as if one part of space and time was inserted into another, intertwining and complicated. The whole world became a kaleidoscope, and it was a three-dimensional kaleidoscope. Chaos form. Not good. Evil Star's body flickered as he pushed his demonic divine fist to the highest level. Relying on his study of the profound of space and time, he blocked the intertwining sword lights one after another. Even so, his comprehension of the profound of space and time was not as profound as Yi Chen's. Some impossible loopholes were dug out and magnified. Then, sparks appeared on his body. Those sparks were caused by the friction between the sword lights and the divine armor. Fortunately, his divine armor was a 2-star Earth divine artifact. Otherwise, the sword lights would have been enough to injure him. Evil Star spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at Yi Chen in disbelief. Yi Chen's realm was not as high as his, but he was able to defeat him. This is his first time comprehending the word martial, but I have comprehended it 3 times. He surpassed me 3 times in just 1 time? For a moment, Evil Star felt a little sad. It seemed that he was destined to be the foil of the first demon lord and his opponent. Chapter 1368. It had been a year since the battle with Evil Star, and Yi Chen finally managed to integrate the profound of power into his chaotic form. Previously, during the battle with Evil Star, he had only integrated half of the profound of power into the chaotic form. Next, Yi Chen tried to integrate the illusory sword form and the profound of power. The illusory sword form was a little different from other sword techniques. This form had a higher requirement on one's heart force. With a strong heart force, the sword speed of the illusory sword form could surpass the heavenly Tao. Then, it integrated the essence of the word illusion, which could cause the enemy to hallucinate. Hence, Yichen estimated that the fusion with the profound of power wouldn't be smooth. After all, illusion and power weren't compatible. Sure enough, after 2 years, Yichen's illusory sword form and the profound of power stagnated after only 1/3 of the fusion. The further he went, the greater the resistance was, as if there was an invisible hand obstructing the fusion. I'd better integrate the sword burial form first. After persisting for another 3 months, Yichen had no choice but to give up. The process of integrating the sword burial form was much smoother. For the past 2 years, its fusion speed was slower than the illusory sword form, but at least it had never stopped progressing. After spending 7 years, the sword burial form had successfully integrated the profound of power. Usually, other than integrating the sword techniques, Yichen would often bring Sky Splitter out to hunt. The current Sky Splitter was already a pinnacle super berserk beast. Yichen realized that if a berserk beast wanted to evolve, devouring a berserk beast of the same level was useless. Or rather, it had to devour a berserk beast that was stronger than itself. In order for Sky Splitter to become a pinnacle super berserk beast, it had devoured a total of 9 pinnacle super berserk beasts, growing from 2.5 meters to 3 meters. Yichen's goal was to make Sky Splitter a legendary berserk beast. Only then would it be able to help him and fight alongside him. Otherwise, it would be like dream-eating wolf, gradually becoming useless. It could be said that the path of a berserk beast's growth was the path of slaughter. No wonder it was called a berserk beast. Of course, every dire beast had its own growth limit. Fortunately, Heaven Splitter hadn't reached that limit yet. The prairie where the unfalling eagle tribe was located was filled with ferocious beasts. Some flew in the sky, some swam in the water, and some burrowed underground. There were all kinds of ferocious beasts. However, it was a bit difficult to find a quasi-legend ferocious beast. After all, quasi-legend ferocious beasts were already considered powerful ferocious beasts on the Wild's God continent, and they were rarely seen. Heaven Splitter's ears twitched. He suddenly lowered his head and rubbed his head against Yichen's shoulder. Yichen looked at Sky Splitter. You said that there's a legendary beast far away? On the Wilderness God continent, the beast's sense of smell and hearing were extremely powerful. Their perception was much stronger than that of Supremes. For example, Heaven Splitter could rely on its sense of smell to smell something thousands of miles away. Of course, this smell had to have been smelled before. Their hearing was even more powerful. They could hear the roars of beasts tens of thousands of miles away. Heaven Splitter nodded vigorously. Let's go, lead the way. A legendary beast was more useful than 10 quasi-legend ferocious beasts. After devouring it, Heaven Splitter would definitely become a quasi-legend ferocious beast. The growth and evolution of ferocious beasts were somewhat similar. They would devour the essence of others to make up for their own shortcomings. After chasing for 7 days and 7 nights, Yichen and Heaven Splitter finally caught up with the legendary beast. This legendary beast was shaped like a rhinoceros. Its shoulder height was 6 to 7 meters, and it was more than 10 meters long. Its body was covered in yellow stripes. Its tail was longer than its body, curling around its waist. It was estimated to be dozens of meters long. Yichen had seen the ferocious beast catalog of the Wilderness God continent. He knew that this rhinoceros was called a plenilune beast. It was only a beginner legendary beast, much weaker than a peak legendary beast like the Gold Eater. Fortunately, it was a beginner legendary beast. If it was a mid-level legendary beast, Yichen would have to think twice. The plenilune beast's roar was very eerie. It didn't match its domineering appearance at all. It gave people a creepy feeling. Heaven Splitter's hair stood on end. Thud, 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 thud. The plenilune beast turned into a cloud of dust and charged at Yichen and Heaven Splitter. The horn on its forehead was glowing. Scatter! Yichen shouted and dodged the plenilune beast's attack. Heaven Splitter was a little embarrassed. The plenilune beast seemed to be very unhappy that Heaven Splitter dared to provoke it. Its 10-meter-long tail was like a whip, lashing at Heaven Splitter's body. Heaven Splitter was sent flying. A deep wound appeared on its body, almost splitting it into two. Fortunately, most of the plenilune beast's attention was on Yi Chen, and its tail only took care of Heaven Splitter. Otherwise, Heaven Splitter would have died without a doubt. Yi Chen was a little annoyed that he had suffered a loss right from the start. He originally didn't plan to dodge, but the horn on the plenilune beast's forehead gave him a trace of threat. According to the beast catalog, the plenilune beast's horn had the power of a mid-level legendary beast. He absolutely couldn't let it hit him. Heaven Splitter, stay away. Not daring to be careless, Yi Chen told Heaven Splitter to stay away from the battlefield. Woo-woo. Heaven Splitter had lost his temper and quickly ran away, staggering a little. Pulling out the Heaven Sword, Yi Chen's aura locked onto the plenilune beast. Although the plenilune beast was a low-level legendary beast, it couldn't be underestimated. Firstly, the defense of its skin was very high, not any weaker than a mid-level legendary beast. Secondly, its horn attack was very powerful. It didn't need to come into direct contact with the enemy. As long as one was hit by its horn, it would be a disaster. Ta-ta. The plenilune beast never knew how to retreat. With its 4 hooves, it crazily charged at Yi Chen. Its speed was getting faster and faster, almost turning into a ray of light. Let's see how strong your ultimate attack is. Raising the Heaven Sword high, Yi Chen performed the Tyrant Sword style. Rumble. Rays of light exploded, and a transparent shockwave spread out, causing the ground to cave in. At the center of the shockwave, the plenilune beast lost its balance, and its huge body was sent flying. Of course, Yi Chen didn't have it easy either. His feet slid on the ground, causing the soil to roll up. What a powerful attack! Yi Chen's palm was a little numb. Facing the plenilune beast's strongest attack was indeed a little strenuous and unrewarding. Swish! Relying on his amazing control, Yi Chen forcefully reversed his retreat, and with a flash, he appeared beside the plenilune beast. The ashes scattered, and Yi Chen's sword stabbed into the plenilune beast's abdomen. The plenilune beast was good at everything, except for its lack of agility. This was its biggest weakness, and also the most fatal one. Of course, when facing Yi Chen's sword burial style, there wasn't much of a difference whether it was agile or not, unless the opponent's bloodline contained space-time profound. Puchi. Sword chi shot out, and the plenilune beast's body was pierced by the sword chi. Then, with the piercing point as the center, the plenilune beast's body began to distort and collapse, turning into pieces of flesh. The sword burial style, which was infused with power profound, was terrifyingly powerful. It was the top of the 5 major sword moves. Putting the Heaven Sword back into its scabbard, Yi Chen gently landed on the ground and began to call Sky Splitter over. The moment a berserk beast died, its flesh and blood essence would be lost, and it must be devoured as soon as possible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be of much use. After all, berserk beasts were different from humans. Humans only needed to rely on the other party's flesh and blood to fill their stomachs. Chapter 1369. Heaven Splitter dashed over, picking up a piece of meat and gnawing on it. After a few bites, Heaven Splitter shook his head and tossed it away. The meat essence inside had already been absorbed. Brain, bone marrow, internal organs, muscles, every part of the full moon beast's body contained the essence of a legendary beast, especially the horn and tail, which contained the most powerful essence. After all, the full moon beast relied on these two to fight. As Sky Splitter crazily devoured the essence of the full moon beast's flesh and blood, Yi Chen also picked up a few pieces of meat and started to grill them. Soon, the smell of meat spread out, making one's mouth water. It's already evolving? While eating, Yi Chen watched Sky Splitter's evolution. Sky Splitter's evolution was very fast. Its body first swelled to 6 to 7 meters tall, and then it began to shrink. When it shrank to 4 meters, it stopped. At this time, its fur was longer, its eyes sharper, and its claws and teeth shone brighter. Its body stood still, but it gave off an oppressive feeling, as if it would pounce and bite at any time. quasi-legendary beast. At this moment, Sky Splitter officially became a quasi-legendary beast. Obviously, this wasn't its limit. According to the records, the ancestor of the starry sky bearcat was a sacred beast, a demigod-level beast. With the ancestor's bloodline, the king of the starry sky bearcat would definitely reach the legendary level. As for whether it was a high-grade legendary beast or a pinnacle legendary beast, no one knew. It all depended on the purity of the ancestor's bloodline in Sky Splitter. Of course, although Sky Splitter only needed to devour the meat of stronger beasts to continue growing, the prerequisite was that it had a strong enough master. According to the previous rules, Sky Splitter needed to devour 10 beginner legendary beasts to become a beginner legendary beast, or 1 intermediate legendary beast. With Yi Chen's current strength, if he encountered intermediate legendary beasts, he wouldn't stand a chance. Some of the more powerful ones were even stronger than Yi Chen. Moreover, whether it could grow depended on the probability. The probability was high at the beginning, but it might not be as high at the later stages. The universe was peaceful. Ever since the Supremes of the Black Wind Stream and Mora Death Prison were released, the atmosphere in the universe became increasingly tense. This kind of pressure was like the undercurrent in the depths of the ocean. It wasn't visible on the surface, but once it erupted, it would engulf the entire world, and no one could escape. 9 Revolutions Star. The current ruler of the 9 Revolutions Star had changed from Supreme Martial Saint to the human demigod, White Pole Sword Saint. Is there still no news of Yi Chen? White Pole Sword Saint was very interested in Yi Chen. No. Zhen Wu Supreme looked helpless. Yi Chen had been away for decades, and there had been no news of him. No one knew where he had gone. Although it was normal for a Supreme to wander for decades, centuries, or even millennia, Yi Chen was a peerless genius of the human clan. If he had been away for a long time, people would inevitably worry about his safety. There's no rush. Let him drift for a while longer. White Pole Sword Saint smiled. Suddenly, as if sensing something, the White Pole Sword Sage turned his head to look at the void. His eyes ignored the distance of space and soon saw a white-haired young man in the Black Tortoise Galaxy undergoing the Venerable Tribulation. It was Duguju who was going through the Supreme Tribulation. On the 30th year after Yi Chen's disappearance, he finally became a Supreme. Good disciple, you've finally become a Supreme. Duguju's master, Yin and Yang Blade Emperor, sensed Duguju's breakthrough and couldn't help but smile. As an 8th layer life and death heavenly emperor, he was able to teach a Supreme. This was enough to leave his name in the annals of history. The next year, another young man broke through to the Supreme Realm. However, this young man was not from Human Race Alliance, but the Dark Goddess of Demons, God Bless Empress, Yi Chen's former opponent. God Bless Empress. No, it should be God Bless Supreme. It wasn't easy for her to become a Supreme, mainly because Yi Chen had left a huge shadow in her heart. If not for this shadow, she would have become a Supreme long ago. Dark Goddess, this bloodline is rare. I just happen to be lacking a partner. Giant Demon Venerable was a legendary Supreme who had come out of the Black Wind Stream. In the past decade, beautiful female emperors of various races had gathered in his palace. There were demons, evil spirit race, Yaksha race, and even humans, barbarian race, and spirit race. However, what he wanted the most was a female Supreme. Dark Witch Six-Winged Supreme was his most desired target. Unfortunately, Six-Winged Supreme was a Supreme after all. Although her strength was not as good as his, she had the protection of Sky Demon Venerable. For this reason, he had fought a great battle with Sky Demon Venerable. However, Sky Demon Venerable had the demonic sacred armor and bloodthirsty spear, so he was not his opponent. This time, Sky Demon Venerable wouldn't stop him, right? Across the boundless space-time, Giant Demon Venerable extended his hand toward God Bless Supreme. Bang! A bloodthirsty light flickered, and Giant Demon Venerable retracted his right hand, revealing a bloody scar on his palm. Sky Demon Venerable, you're courting death. Giant Demon Venerable flew into a rage out of humiliation. The other party had stopped him again and again. Did he really think he was a pushover? If it wasn't for the fact that his strength had yet to recover, he would have taken him down long ago. Giant Demon Venerable, if you want a female supreme, you can go capture those from other races. You better not have any ideas about my own race. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Sky Demon Venerable's voice traveled across spacetime. Giant Demon Venerable said eerily, "You can protect her for a while, but you can't protect her forever." "I can't protect her forever, but someone can. If you don't care about your life, you can try." Sky Demon Venerable threw out a sentence. "Oh, who is it?" "Demon Saint Garo. He has already officially gone into seclusion. No one knows when he will wake up again, and he won't care about these small things. Of course it's not Lord Demon Saint. There's no harm in telling you. The great Demon King's bloodline has long been born. The Dark Witch and Dark Goddess will both be his partners. Therefore, you better put away your thoughts in case the great Demon King's bloodline returns and kills you." Great Demon King's bloodline. The words Great Demon King's bloodline were like a curse that shocked Giant Demon Venerable. Since ancient times, as long as the Great Demon King's bloodline was born, the Dark Witch and Dark Goddess would always be his partners. No one dared to snatch them away. The other races might not know much about the Great Demon King's bloodline, but the Demon Venerables definitely knew. "Humph, don't lie to me. Why haven't I heard about this? Of course I won't tell you this directly, but I have already told Lord Demon Saint." "Humph, you win. I want to see what the Great Demon King's bloodline can do. I hope it won't disappoint me." The Giant Demon Venerable was a high-level legendary supreme at his peak. He was still a little unconvinced by the bloodline of the Great Demon King. In the entire universe, only Demon Sage Garo and Sword Sage White Pole could make him completely convinced and not dare to provoke them. "Female Supreme, since I can't touch my own race, I will capture those from other races." Giant Demon Venerable had an idea. He had plenty of time, and he would succeed eventually. Chapter 1370. 33 years after Yi Chen's disappearance, Sword Saint Bai Ji went into seclusion. He needed to recover to his peak and form his own body. Demigods losing their bodies didn't seem to affect them much, but it would limit their future development. 35 years after Yi Chen's disappearance, Yan Qingxian became a supreme. In just a few years, there were 3 more thousand-year supremes in the universe. They were Duguju, Supreme God Bless, and Yan Qingxian. All 3 became supremes within 1,000 years. Becoming a supreme was a good thing, but it also brought a lot of trouble to Yan Qingxian. Among the supremes in the universe, more than 90% of them were men. There were very few women, which also led to female supremes being very popular. After all, everyone hoped that their partner would be a female supremes. That way, they could grow old together and live until the end of time. Therefore, on the surface and in the dark, there were many supremes looking for Yan Qingxian, hoping that she could become their partner. Among them was a legendary supremes. Yan Qingxian rejected them all. Even if she wanted a partner, she wouldn't find these people. Many of them were hundreds of times older than her. From some secret information, it was known that Yan Qingxian was Yi Chen's confidant and good friend. Therefore, the majority of the supremes restrained themselves and wouldn't do anything forceful. Only Supreme Skyhook, who had come out of Moro Death Prison, didn't care who Yi Chen was. He had taken a liking to Yan Qingxian. This kind of beautiful woman was rarely seen in the world, and it was even rarer for her to cultivate to the supremes. If Six-Winged Supreme and God Bless Supreme were said to be outstanding bloodlines, then Yan Qingxian was said to be the best of all women. There was another reason why Supreme Skyhook wanted Yan Qingxian as his partner. He didn't have any children. In fact, many supremes would try to have children before they became supremes. Once they became supremes, their other half had to be supremes as well. For example, if Yi Chen wanted children, then Su Jing and Murong Qingqing had to become supremes. Otherwise, they couldn't get pregnant. Supreme Skyhook didn't know how long he could live. Therefore, before he died, he needed to raise a supremes. It would be best if the supremes were his children. Yan Qingxian, who looked cute and pretty, naturally became a hot commodity in the old man's eyes. Fortunately, Supreme True Marshal stopped Supreme Skyhook at the most crucial moment. A peerless genius like Yi Chen had walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. He was usually gentle, but once someone angered him, they would have to suffer his wrath. If Yi Chen came back and found out that Supreme Sky Hook forced Yan Qingxian to become his partner, he would undoubtedly fall out with Supreme Sky Hook. Yi Chen might not be Supreme Sky Hook's match in the beginning, but given enough time, Yi Chen would eventually surpass Supreme Sky Hook. Whether it was Yi Chen suffering a loss or Yi Chen suppressing Supreme Sky Hook, it was not something Supreme True Martial wanted to see. The human race alliance had to maintain internal harmony. Supreme True Martial used his divine artifact armor and the True Martial divine truncheon to force Supreme Sky Hook to retreat a few times and warn him several times. Damn it, I'm a legendary supremacy. How noble! How dare you stop me? As a legendary supremacy, Supreme Sky Hook was very proud. He had been a peerless genius in the past. If he hadn't been imprisoned in the Moro Death Prison, he might have even become a demigod. I'll go into seclusion to recover my power. When I come out, no one can stop me. Supreme Sky Hook decided to go into seclusion. He had gathered enough resources to recover his power. On the 200th year of Yi Chen's disappearance, Emperor Audiobook successfully broke through and became a sovereign. He had crossed the threshold of 1,000 years sovereign to become a sovereign. This also represented his frightening potential. However, his brilliance had always been overshadowed by Yi Chen. As for Dugu Ju and Yan Qingxian becoming sovereigns within 1,000 years, it was actually out of many people's expectations. However, many things were uncertain. Becoming a sovereign also depended on one's temperament, and not just one's talent and comprehension. Audiobook, who had become a supremacy, was called one of the top 10 supremacies. As for Emperor Peerless, it was too exaggerated. So far, the human race had 3 youths who had become supremacies. They were all supremacies. Of course, other races also had youths who had become supremacies. There were 2 demons. One of them was a supreme god bless while the other one was older. He was over 2,000 years old. One from the evil spirit race. One from the Yaksha race. 2 from the barbarian race. 2 from the giant race. Originally, there should have been more than 2 demons. It was the same for the evil spirit race and the Yaksha race. There should have been more than one supremacy. Unfortunately, their top geniuses had all died in the Shuro world arena. The one who killed them was Yi Chen. Yi Chen had stepped on their bodies to become a supremacy. Apart from the new supremacy of the demons, the number of supremacies in the universe had increased from 1 to 11. If Supremacy Evil Star and Yi Chen, who had been missing for many years, were added to the total number of supremacies. If Yi Chen was the sun, then they were the stars, blooming with their own light. However, few people knew that there was another sun blooming with dazzling light. Yi Chen was the white sun, and the other party was the black sun, the bloodline of the great demon king. There are so many supremacies appearing all of a sudden. Are they trying to make the universe even more chaotic? Some supremacies were secretly discussing. There were simply too many supremacies. In the past, it was already not bad to have one appear in an era. This time, there were more than 10 of them. The supremacies are the trump cards. I'm afraid there will be more young supremacies in the future. Yes, that's for sure. The supremacies are just the first batch. Our potential has been exhausted. It's up to these young supremacies to perform. Wilderness God Continent. In the past 200 years, Yi Chen had already fused the defensive sword stance with the power ultimacy. He had even successfully fused the most difficult illusory sword stance with the power ultimacy. During this period, the challenge of the Wilderness God Tower was carried out again. This time, Yi Chen was still first in the tower. The defensive sword stance fused with the power ultimacy was too powerful. He might not be able to defeat the first demon venerable with the great demon king bloodline in a one-on-one fight, but he was undoubtedly the strongest in the tower. With the defensive sword stance, he reached the 788th level, while the first demon venerable reached the 787th level. They were still one level apart. As for the third place, there was a huge gap between the two. It was unknown when it started, but the two had already surpassed the others. However, among the top 5, only Yi Chen was not a legendary supremacy. Even Kong Xueli and War Bear had become legendary supremacies. It was shocking to have such strength without becoming a legendary supremacy. However, there were also many limitations. After becoming a legendary supremacy, one could continue to develop. But before becoming a legendary supremacy, one's foundation was too weak. There was also a lack of accumulation. It was not obvious at the moment, but as time passed, it would become more and more obvious. Chapter 1371. Could it be that if my sword intent cannot be improved, my martial yuan soul cannot be developed? This was the second time Yi Chen was trying to comprehend the word martial. Unfortunately, although his 2 sword intents had improved, there seemed to be no end to the peak of the 8th order. He couldn't see the barrier to the 9th order no matter what. On the other hand, his radiant sword intent was gradually catching up, reaching the late stage of the 8th order. It was only 2 levels lower than the immortal sword intent and destruction sword intent. I'll see next time. If my sword intent still cannot be improved, I can forget about it. It was impossible for Yi Chen to waste the opportunity to comprehend the word martial on his sword intent. Ever since the 5 sword moves fused with the power profoundness, his improvement was minimal. With so much time, he could create other sword arts, such as the yin-yang sword art, or the earth, water, fire, and wind sword arts. One should not think that creating new sword arts was useless. At the legendary supremacy realm, if one wanted to go further and become a demigod, one had to have a deep understanding of martial arts. Otherwise, there was no way to improve one's martial yuan soul. The reason why there was the word martial in front of the martial yuan soul was because the martial yuan soul was not only the condensation of essence, energy, and spirit, it was also the foundation of one's martial Tao. Soon, it was the 3rd time he attempted the Desolate God Tower. On the 788th level, Yi Chen and Desolate Spirit were entangled. The blade art of this level of Desolate Spirit was boundlessly tyrannical, and was even more subtle in the feminine aspect. However, Yi Chen's sword art had also reached the pinnacle. It should be known that 100 years ago, his 5 sword styles had already been infused with the profound of power at the Great Completion realm. After 100 years, although their might hadn't increased much, be it in terms of power exertion or technique, they had all reached the realm of practice makes perfect, and practice makes perfect. Without a trace of smoke or fire, Yi Chen deflected Desolate Spirit's saber strike after strike, gradually turning his advantage into victory. Finally, he slashed his opponent's throat, defeating him. The 789th level. The 790th level. The 791st level. Finally, Yi Chen reached his limit. He stopped at the 792nd level. Exhaling, Yi Chen walked out of the Desolate God Tower. Yi Chen, don't be discouraged. Try harder next time. Lan Yu comforted Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled. It's fine. It's within my expectations. On the crystal stele, the first demon venerable with the great demon king bloodline was not him. He had already reached the 795th level, and there was no sign of him stopping. The 3rd place was still Evil Star with a score of 770. The 4th place was Kong Xueli with 755, and the 5th place was War Bear with 750. In terms of results, the first Demon Venerable and Yi Chen were on the same level. Evil Star was on his own level, while Kong Xueli and Battle Bear were on the same level. However, it seemed that the first Demon Venerable was exerting his strength and had the tendency to occupy a level by himself. As for Evil Star, he was temporarily unable to surpass Yi Chen. The Great Demon King bloodline is too sick. The bloodline of the Great Demon King had long been exposed. War Bear said to Kong Xueli. Kong Xueli nodded. He is constantly improving at a high speed. I really don't know where his limits are. How can there be such a terrifying bloodline in this world? At the beginning, everyone was skeptical about the Great Demon King bloodline. However, after knowing the first Demon Venerable's age, they were all speechless. The crucial point was that not only was the first demon venerable's bloodline invincible, his perception was also extremely terrifying. He simply had no flaws. Perhaps his only flaw was that he was too perfect. The 796th level. The 797th level. The 800th level. When the first devil venerable reached the 800th level, the leaders of the 5 tribes glanced at each other in dismay. The 800th level was another level. Every 100th level was a bottleneck, and the desolate spirit would become much more monstrous. Finally, the first demon venerable stopped at the 802nd level. After walking out of the desolate god tower, the first demon venerable ignored everyone else. He looked at Yi Chen and said, "I've surpassed you. Congratulations." Yi Chen was neither sad nor happy. The first demon venerable said with a smile that didn't look like a smile, "After being surpassed by me, you will no longer have the possibility of surpassing me. While you are improving, I am also improving. Furthermore, the extent of my improvement is even greater. How would you know if you don't try? Alright, I will wait and see. However, in my heart, I don't wish for you to be surpassed by me so quickly. That would be too boring." The first demon venerable laughed and left. Ying Lai Xiong sighed. The competition between these two geniuses had shocked them to their core. It was too exaggerated. Fortunately, Lan Yu had finally made it to the top 9, earning a portion of time for the unfalling eagle tribe. Including Yi Chen's portion, it was still 2 portions. As expected, my sword intent didn't break through to the 9th level. In the courtyard, Yi Chen exited from the strange space with the word, "Martial." He frowned and then relaxed. The peak of the 8th level was called the limit, and it seemed to be not far from the 9th level. However, only by truly trying would one know that the distance between the peak of the 8th level and the 9th level was still a long way. The limit was just a path with no end. Without special opportunities or great enlightenment, one might not be able to reach the end of the path in his entire life. The only consolation was that his sword intent had also reached the peak of the 8th level. With the 3 peak of the 8th level sword spirits gathered in his ocean of soul, Yi Chen's body had a slight change. His entire ocean of soul was like a glowing ball of light, transparent and translucent. It was hard for him to have any distracting thoughts. Any distracting thoughts that might affect the growth of his sword art could no longer exist. Other than that, the 3 great sword spirits resonated with each other, increasing his speed of improvement drastically. There was no end to the peak of the 8th level, but the further one went, the more powerful it was. For example, one had just reached the peak of the 8th level, while the other had been there for a long time. Naturally, the latter's sword intent would be stronger. On the grassland, the sword wind was howling. From time to time, the sword light would flash, leaving sword marks one after another on the grassland. A silhouette pierced through the sword wind and landed on the ground. It was none other than Yi Chen. 10 years have passed, and the power of my sword intent has increased by 10 times. The same peak of the 8th level, but the difference is too big. To be honest, Yi Chen was also very surprised, but then he understood. The peak of the 8th level should be a process of accumulation. Without enough accumulation, one would not be able to reach the 9th level, but with enough accumulation, one would be able to reach the 9th level naturally. According to the legends, the peak of the 9th level sword intent contained a trace of the sword god's power. This was not without reason. If the peak of the 8th level was this big, then the 9th level would be unimaginably terrifying. Of course, not to mention the peak of the 9th level, not many people could reach the 9th level. Among the legendary supremes, there were only a few who could reach the 9th level with their martial intent. Those who could reach the 9th level were all at the peak of the legendary supremes. Chapter 1372. In these 10 years, Yi Chen's sword intent had increased tenfold. After 50 years, Yi Chen's sword intent had increased by a total of 50 times, roughly doubling every year. The 3 peak 8-step sword souls resonated at a speed that was dozens of times faster than 2 peak 8-step sword souls resonating. As the sword intent increased, Yi Chen noticed that the black strands on his yuan shun were showing signs of disintegration. Unfortunately, the speed was too slow. Fortunately, the sword intent was increasing every day. One day, it would reach the 9th step and possess unimaginable power. Killing the black strands on his Yuan Shen would be as easy as flipping one's palm. The improvement of the immortal sword intent had strengthened his immortal sword body by 50 times. Adding on the fact that he had absorbed the essence of 10 first and second rank supreme swords in the past 200 years, his immortal sword body had reached the 12th layer, allowing him to resist the attacks of a low-level legendary sovereign without suffering any damage. Unfortunately, the number of supreme swords was limited. Yi Chen had a feeling that if he wanted to break through to the 13th level, he would need to absorb the essence of at least 100 first or second grade supreme swords. In the end, the immortal sword body was still inferior to the 9 transformation golden body in some aspects. After all, although the 9 transformation golden body's cultivation speed was slower, it didn't have such harsh requirements. Sky Splitter, let's go hunting. Right now, no matter where he went, he would bring Sky Splitter with him. Compared to warriors, the evolution of fierce beasts was both easy and difficult. It was easy because they only needed to devour life forms that were more powerful than them to evolve. But it was difficult because without external help, how could they fight against life forms that were more powerful than them? Other fierce beasts grew step by step, but Sky Splitter was like a rocket, rising in a straight line. In these 200 years, Sky Splitter had devoured 6 beginner legendary beasts and wasn't far from advancing. Carrying Yi Chen on its back, Sky Splitter flew out as fast as a meteor. Sky Splitter, hurry up. On this day, Yi Chen discovered black smoke lingering in the air. There were even traces of flames burning within the black smoke. If Yi Chen's guess was right, the black smoke should have been left behind by the legendary beast, the Black Smoke Beast. The Black Smoke Beast liked to stay in the underground magma. It would only come to the surface when it was hungry. Relying on Heaven Splitter's sense of smell to lock onto the black smoke, Yi Chen quickly spotted the Black Smoke Beast. The Black Smoke Beast was several times larger than Heaven Splitter. Its entire body was pitch black, like charcoal. However, there were faint cracks on the surface of its skin. The black smoke was coming from these cracks, and the smell was extremely dense. Black smoke billowed as the Black Smoke Beast roared at Yi Chen and Sky Splitter. Then, it glared at them with an emotionless, ominous glint in its eyes. Sky Splitter, watch from the side. Yi Chen jumped down from Sky Splitter's back and unsheathed Sky Sword. Ear-piercing sonic booms rang out continuously. The black smoke was pulled into a straight line. The Black Smoke Beast dashed forward and was less than 10 meters away from Yi Chen. Its mouth was wide open, and within it was scarlet magma. Berry! Without holding back, Yi Chen directly used the strongest berry sword style, piercing through the Black Smoke Beast's body. Then, the sword energy twisted and destroyed the Black Smoke Beast's vitality. Currently, Yi Chen only needed 1 sword to deal with a beginner legendary beast. In the blink of an eye, a few years had passed. He was only 1 or 2 beginner legendary beasts away from Sky Splitter's advancement. Of course, the advancement depended on the probability. If he was lucky, the number would be about the same. Unknowingly, the man and the beast arrived near the desolate god's secret territory. They were tracking a legendary beast. The surroundings were quiet, as though all sound had been cut off by an invisible hand. If it wasn't for the fact that there was no danger near the desolate god's secret territory, Yi Chen definitely wouldn't take the risk. Sky Splitter, can you smell the other party's scent? Yi Chen lowered his head and asked Sky Splitter. Sky Splitter's expression was a little uneasy. It was unknown whether it was because they were near the desolate god's secret territory or because their target was a mid-level legendary beast. To deal with a beginner legendary beast, Yi Chen only needed 1 sword. To deal with a mid-level legendary beast, Yi Chen would have to go all out. Although his sword intent had increased by more than 50 times, to be honest, it wasn't a big deal. If his combat power had increased by more than 50 times, it would be better. Increasing his sword intent by more than 50 times would only increase Yi Chen's combat power by about 10 times. Of course, this was mainly because the time was too short. If Yichen was given 1,000 years, his sword intent would increase by 1,000 times, which would be about 200 times in terms of combat power. A mid-level legendary beast was rather rare. If he didn't seize this opportunity, it would be difficult to see one in the future. Therefore, Yichen was prepared to take a gamble. Even if he couldn't kill the other party, he would at least slice off a piece of flesh from the other party. A piece of flesh from a mid-level legendary beast was roughly equivalent to a beginner legendary beast. Relying on the starry Sky Bear Dog King's unique sense of smell, Sky Splitter carried Yichen and quickly scurried out. It had smelled the scent. Not long after, the two of them saw a cave. The cave was about a few meters wide, but it was very deep. It was pitch black without a trace of light. A storm-like hissing sound could be heard as a black shadow slowly slithered out. It was a huge grayish-black python with dozens of sharp horns on its head. Its head was round like a ball. Middle-level legendary beast, Iron Star Snake. The snake coiled its body and raised its head high. Its two scarlet tongues flickered as fast as lightning. A battle was about to break out. All of a sudden, the ground beneath Yichen and Sky Splitter suddenly exploded as a long tail broke out from the ground and curled towards the two. It turned out that the Iron Star Snake had already drilled its tail into the ground to ambush Yichen and Sky Splitter. So experienced! Yichen didn't notice when the Iron Star Snake had drilled its tail into the ground. Caught off guard, he and Sky Splitter were coiled by the snake's tail and couldn't move. In the next moment, the Iron Star Snake's round head scurried over and bit at Yichen first. The other party was a mid-level legendary beast. With a light bite, its teeth could probably pierce through Yichen's immortal sword physique. Coupled with its terrifying poison, Yichen would die without a doubt. Get lost! Although Yichen couldn't break free, he still had the Netherworld's sacred eye. A surge of soul force mixed with Hell's will gushed out and hit the Iron Star Snake's head. The Iron Star Snake's body stiffened as if it was paralyzed. Seizing this opportunity, Yichen and Sky Splitter instantly broke free. Hiss. The Iron Star Snake soon recovered and angrily pounced at Yichen again. Ding, ding, ding. One man and one snake started to fight. What Yichen didn't know was that his battle with the Iron Star Snake had already fallen into the eyes of a horrifying creature. This creature was standing on a high mountain with a baboon-like body and a pair of blood-red eyes. If Yichen saw this creature, he would definitely recognize it. When the leaders of the 5 tribes tore the time-space and sent the gold-eating beasts into the desolate god's secret domain, there was a scene on the other side of the time-space tunnel, which scared the gold-eating beasts so much that they were shivering. Chapter 1373. The Iron Star Snake was very powerful. Although Yichen's sword burial form could injure it, it could only leave a bowl-sized bloody hole on its body. Unfortunately, the Iron Star Snake was a beast that contained the bloodline of time and space ultimacy. Yichen's sword burial form couldn't be effective every time. Out of the 5 times, it was dodged at least 4 times. The sword light crisscrossed and landed on the Iron Star Snake's body in a flash. In terms of power, chaotic form wasn't as powerful as tyrant sword form or sword burial form. However, it was undoubtedly the most comprehensive attack. Facing this attack, the Iron Star Snake knew it couldn't avoid it. Therefore, it coiled itself together to reduce the area of attack. Swoosh, 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 streaks of bloody marks appeared on the Iron Star Snake's body. It was as if it had been strangled by a sharp fishing net as it screamed in pain. Tyrant sword form. Seizing the opportunity, Yichen raised his heaven sword and slashed down vertically. His target was the Iron Star Snake's spherical head. Gotcha! The heaven sword was extremely sharp. Together with tyrant sword form, it was as if it could split the sky and earth. Half of the Iron Star Snake's head was split open, revealing the gray brain inside. Danger! After heavily injuring the opponent with one slash, Yichen didn't lose his cool. When he sensed the incoming danger, his figure flashed and flew out diagonally. The next moment, a black shadow flashed by. It was the Iron Star Snake's tail. The Iron Star Snake was a mid-tier legend rank beast. Its tail was its sharp weapon. Its piercing power was terrifying and was enough to pierce through Yi Chen's immortal sword body. The head that was almost split closed up. The iron star snake's eyes exploded with ferocious light. Its head swelled and opened its mouth, shooting a black line at Yi Chen. It was venom. Yi Chen quickly dodged. Next, the iron star snake attacked Yi Chen with its venom like a storm. The venom was extremely toxic. When it landed on the ground, it would evaporate and turn into gas. Yi Chen, who had accidentally inhaled some of the gas, felt dizzy and powerless. If it wasn't for the immortal force eliminating the gas in his body in time, Yi Chen might have failed miserably. How troublesome! This was the first time that Yi Chen had fought against a mid-level legendary level wild beast. Thus, he found that his offensive power was not strong enough. Although the wild beast did not possess a suit of supreme armor or sacred armor, its defensive power was not to be underestimated. Without a certain level of offensive power, it would be hard for him to kill it. Woo 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 woo. In the distance, Heaven Splitter suddenly called out in a low voice. Yi Chen's face paled. He knew what Sky Split meant. A terrifying wild beast was rushing over. According to Sky Split, this wild beast was even stronger than the gold-devouring beast. What kind of dire beast is stronger than gold-eating beasts? The leaders of the 5 major tribes were all peak legendary supremes, and the gold-eating beast was also a peak legendary ferocious beast, but it was stronger than the leaders of the 5 major tribes. Could it be a quasi-holy beast that was stronger than it? Yi Chen was shocked. A demigod-level wild beast was a holy beast. Once a wild beast became a holy beast, it would have a spiritual wisdom not inferior to a martial artist. It would become a truly terrifying existence. Although a quasi-holy beast was countless times weaker than a holy beast, it was still extremely terrifying. A peak legendary ferocious beast was no different from a child in front of it. As the gale descended, Yi Chen finally caught sight of this terrifying beast. It was a baboon-like beast, and its blood-red eyes were different from ordinary beasts. It already possessed a considerable amount of intelligence. Creatures with intelligence normally wouldn't appear too ferocious. However, upon seeing this baboon-like beast, Yi Chen's scalp went numb, and his body stiffened. The other party's blood-red eyes contained boundless craftiness and brutality, bringing about boundless negative emotions. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that a single glance from this baboon-like beast would cause the soul of an ordinary supremacy to crumble and die. In almost an instant, Yi Chen woke up. Fortunately, he had 3 peak rank 8 sword souls. His sea of soul could not contain any distracting thoughts or negative emotions. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to wake up in such a short time. Rumble. The baboon-like wild beast couldn't really rush over. When it was only 100 miles away from Yi Chen and the Iron Star Snake, its whole body bounced back as if there was an invisible force obstructing it. Because of this, the baboon-like wild beast was very angry. It charged forward again and again, but it was bounced back every time. The Iron Star Snake was already paralyzed with fear. The invisible force that obstructed the baboon-like wild beast couldn't isolate its aura. Therefore, other than the baboon-like wild beast not being able to come over, the pressure it emitted was real. There wasn't a trace of falsehood or weakening. In the distance, Sky Splitting was also lying on the ground, shivering. It was said that when a weak wild beast met a strong one, it would directly lie on the ground. Even if the other party wanted to eat it, it wouldn't dare to run away and let the other party tear it apart and devour it. Yi Chen stood there blankly as if he was also scared silly. In fact, that wasn't the case. Although the baboon-like wild beast's pressure on Yi Chen was very strong, Yi Chen wasn't a wild beast after all, so the pressure he felt was countless times smaller. Moreover, Yi Chen's soul was very strong. His sea of soul contained 3 peak rank 8 sword souls, and he also had the netherworld's sacred eye that contained the Hell's Will. Therefore, he always had a strong immunity to pressure. He stood there motionlessly because he felt an invisible and formless will fluctuation. This fluctuation was very obscure, and ordinary people couldn't feel it at all. The reason why Yi Chen could feel it was because the black strands on his martial Dao Yuan Shen were actually disintegrating. It seemed that this fluctuation of will could innately kill evil power. The black strands on Yi Chen's martial Dao Yuan Shen were countless evil power tangled together and condensed into a chaotic will. This chaotic will obstructed Yi Chen's progress. It was like an invisible net that firmly trapped Yi Chen. If Yi Chen's sword intent could reach rank 9, he would naturally be able to kill this chaotic will, but the rank 9 sword intent was far beyond his reach. But now, the chaotic will was actually disintegrating quickly. Could this be the will of the desolate god? Yi Chen had once felt the will of a true god. That was in hell, the will of the puppet true god. This was the second time. To him, the two wills were equally strong, even stronger than the heavenly Tao law. Perhaps only the universe's will could resist it. Right? The hell's will is the negative side of the universe's will. It is an equal existence to the universe's will. Why can't the hell's will disintegrate the chaotic will? Doubt rose in Yi Chen's mind. But soon, the doubt disappeared. Yi Chen guessed that the netherworld's sacred eye was a kind of talent ability. Although he could use it, he couldn't separate the hell's will. Perhaps he could do it one day, but not now. He still couldn't control the hell's will. The baboon charged again and again. Finally, it gave up. It glared at the human and the two beasts, turned around, and quickly disappeared. The desolate god's will disappeared? Yi Chen frowned. How do I trigger the desolate god's will? Yi Chen didn't dare to attack that invisible force like the baboon. The baboon was fine, but it didn't mean that he would be fine. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.